my last weather briefing, not as a presenter or as an attendee. It's been good to join this weather briefing again. I think it was some 1 or 2 years when I wasn't involved with these briefings and giving them, and now I'm back for this one time at least. Thank you for EUMeTrain for inviting me to share this half an hour with you on the current weather in Europe. I'm just needing to check that everybody's fine with the slide, that everybody sees the first slide. Okay, I guess so. So I am Vesa Nietosvaara, as Marco said. I'm working here at EUMETSAT as a training officer. And of course, when I'm working as a trainer here, I'm not that much involved with the operational weather forecasting itself. I used to be a forecaster in the past, and but I still, of course, like to keep an eye on the current weather. But at these days, mostly from the satellite point of view, what can we see on using the satellites? Today's briefing, I will just briefly go through what happened during this week, and then we'll have a look on more in detail on today's pictures, and especially the satellite images, and in conjunction with other observations and NWP. I think we all agree that you never use the satellite images alone when you are an operational bench. I'm seeing many familiar names in the attendee list, so I somehow feel that many of you have probably been forecasting recently or even recent days, and many of you have probably also attended the currently ongoing warning week of EUMeTrain. So I guess you have been keeping your headsets on quite a while already today, well, those of you who have been attending today's sessions. I'm just wanting to start the session because it's December, and December somehow relates to winter and snow. This is the ECMWF Snow image, or it's a snow analysis or snow background for today. And yes, so here you see the snow map analysis of today. I hope everybody sees it now. Well, the white is snow, and the green is at least the model things that it's bare ground. So maybe at this point it would be nice to check with all the participants that those of you who are at the moment seeing snow around outside from their window, they could click on yes at their you have a yes button there. If you see snow outside, click on yes, and then we have a quick overview of who is actually in the moment under these snowy conditions. I think normally we do this thing that everybody shows where they are coming from, but I think for today it's mostly European audience and with some outside European participants as well. So not so many. I see, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snowy people, and more or less all the others are coming from the bare ground conditions. The same thing happens here also in Darmstadt near Frankfurt. We had some snow last Sunday, and then it has been quickly going away again. All right, thank you for your answers. This is, of course, the model view of the snow. This is more what you see now here is the satellite HSAF makes a snow analysis every day, and what they prepare here is the overview of the snow, cloud, and bare ground conditions, where the bare ground is green and snow is white, of course, and the cloud mask is light blue. And even if we have, this is the analysis from yesterday, and even if it's a fairly cloudy scene, you can still see that there are some breaks in the cloud scene, and we can pick up some places where we have some snow. Even, for example, if you look at the areas in the southwest part of the Great Britain, you see there are some white pixels, so it seems that there is some snowy conditions there, as well as here in the higher mountains of the Pyrenees and also of the Alpine countries. Some snow patches also still in the Bavaria and the southern Germany, also in the western parts of Poland. And when we go more towards the east, then the cloud cover is unfortunately blocking all the all the snow observations, but I see some individual snow pixels there, as well as also in the mountains of Italy. So this is a product that you can use for having a fairly up-to-date image of the snow cover every day. I made a quick Google search before this session just to Googling snow, 10 December, Europe. 10 December was Sunday, and many of you may probably remember that that was an interesting day in Europe. We had one mighty low over covering the whole of Europe, and it's still somehow the situation is still continuing. So I'm starting this story from Sunday and then moving stepwise towards Thursday. Lots of problems in the weather at that time. Here in Germany there was maybe some places there was like 1 inch of snow, 2 or 3 centimeters, but that was already enough to put some of the airports in quite an emergency state. That was the animation here now that you see running here is from Sunday to Thursday. And it's a bit jumpy, of course, because it's 24-hour intervals, the mean sea level pressure. But the main feature you see there is that we are in a very cyclonic season at the moment in this part of the world. Taking just one step at a time, you should now see the Sunday 12 UTC and starting the story here. You might like to even use the text chat box and just type in some of your observations. If you were having a forecast shift during these days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what kind of problems did you have in your country? For me, of course, I only had a very limited view of what happened in this part of Europe, and this front that came with it was very well forecast. I think already many days before we could see that it's coming, and so even the many airports were already preparing for their flights and cancelling some flights already a day in advance because they were seeing that there will be some problem on the way. So this is one part. I see that Yasmin is saying that there were strong firm winds in Austria Sunday and Monday. That's correct. I also remember some of the people mentioning that there was quite rainy day in Portugal and Spain, lots of rain in that region. But you see it covers the whole of Europe. Also UK was under snow in many places. I'm seeing your comments on the text chat box. Please keep them coming. It's nice to read what you experienced. Meanwhile, I'm just moving on to the Monday, and Yasmin mentioned the firn wind. I saw some observations in Croatia. There were something like 17, 18 degrees temperatures on Monday. This was probably partly by the firn effect. It was very strong southerly wind on these regions there on Monday. A lot of strong winds as well. Yeah, thanks. I'm seeing your comments coming in. And yes, Portugal, 40 millimeters of rain on Sunday, Monday, and strong winds. If we move on to Tuesday, at least if I had any Finnish colleagues here, they would probably mention that this was quite a disaster day for Finland. There was lots of wet snow, I think over 10 centimeters of it, and that again was a problem for the traffic and the aviation. Miguel says South Portugal, much more in the north. So the North Portugal on Sunday, Monday was the most rainiest part of the country. Yeah, interesting to see that we all have had some kind of experience. This is still a very fresh situation. On Wednesday, we now see that this is yesterday's situation. And for a moment, it seems to have been easing up in the southern parts of Europe. Easy winds, and most of the activities now in the north. It was not so bad day, I guess. But now we are moving on to Thursday, and this is this afternoon. And again, we are back in the strong low over the British Isles, and Ireland, southern Scandinavia. One old low still in the northern parts of the Scandinavia. There's some new development here on the west, and only the southern parts of Europe, especially Spain, that seems to be fairly good at the moment. And if we look at the 500 hectopascal level, you can see it looks fairly busy there as well. This is now the ECMWF from Sunday till Thursday. And of course, you won't catch all the details because it's a loop every 24 hours. But keeping in mind that the central parts of Europe are here, we have had a lot of jet stream level activity going on there. And I will actually, towards the end of the briefing, we will have a kind of an overview of what's happening and outlook what's happening after this day, maybe even towards Christmas time. Today's Europe analysis is fairly simple. I took this one from the DWD analysis, with Europe being clearly cut in two pieces. One is the busy part here in the west, windy, rainy, snowy, showers of snow, rain, sleet, and divider is somewhere here in the central parts of Europe at the moment, together with quite gusty winds. Southerly flow here in the southeast parts of Europe, and also there are some sunny parts in Europe, and I will actually come there very soon. Some of the examples of satellite images where we can see that not everything is just very busy with clouds and rain at the moment. But now going a little bit to some kind of a satellite overview of what's happening today. This is the water vapor 6.2 image and loop from 5 till 11 UTC today, and you see the same features here. Though this is the very southeasterly part of Europe. We have the frontal zone moving away, and then there is the other one, the rather wide extended cold front going across the south and central Europe towards east, and behind the cold front you see also in the water vapor images you see this very sharp gradient from the white to black, and that coincides very well with the strong gusts. And you see also something very nice here at the rear of the actual front. There's a coma cloud type of a formation there, which is probably also contributing to the gusty winds at the moment in Europe. In addition, if you look at the British Isles and the islands, you see those lumps of convective clouds over there. We'll zoom them. We will zoom into that region soon after this. Just having one still image of the same water vapor image, but this time with an isotext overlay, you can see the connection with the jet stream level winds over 70 meters per second. It's fairly strong jet stream at the moment over there, and it goes all the way across to Europe. So the polar front is at the moment over here, and everything north of this line here is in the polar Airmass. And by the way, yes, the next system is already visible here in the west. In the infrared images, you see much more details. Of course, you see especially the British Isles and the island, the showers, strong signatures of showers. Maybe we would even try to zoom in a little bit there, and so you can see a bit better. So there we have the convective elements over there, very intense convection on that region. And then next to the Airmass RGB, we need to show at least one or two Airmass RGB images on every briefing. This one is very well showing all the dry air behind the fronts. One dry zone and dry stripe is extending across Cyprus and to the western parts of Black Sea, and the other one is here over the Atlantic, just north of the jet streak, just north of it, and showing you the intrusion of the very dry air from the back towards the cyclone centers. So these are the main features we can see on the Airmass RGB. And finally, the The other RGB is now just a simple day natural color RGB, 11 UTC today. What you can see, of course, that it's the dark season. It's almost the darkest day of the year, so we do not have much of daylight in northern parts of Scandinavia, and we barely have it also here in the just north of Scotland. It's fairly dark already, but in the south we see the clearer regions in Europe which have a bit of better weather are the areas in Bulgaria, Greece, western parts of Turkey, and as well as in Romania there are clearer patches, but I saw that one participant in Romania already was mentioned that there are some low clouds in Alba Iulia area. And then you see the frontal clouds here, ice clouds showing as cyan colors. They are clearly depicted here. And between these two fronts on the east and the west, over across Ukraine, you can see that the area between is covered fully with low-level clouds, maybe fog, maybe drizzle as well. I'm just giving you a little bit of a zoom into this area on the east to just highlight that there's our Sentinel satellite. Gives you a little bit of better overview of what are the details of all these clouds. So you see here in the below you see Cyprus, here is Turkey, and here is Greece, and then here is Bulgaria and Romania. And the clearer areas you see as greenish colors. And if we go even further, zooming into the most sunny part of Europe, I guess, this is where I would like to be, is of course the Greece, Turkey, the Mediterranean parts. Nice details showing you all the little details of the fair weather cumulus clouds over the Mediterranean with the Sentinel satellite. This is from this morning at 09 UTC. So, to the warnings. It's a warning week at EUMeTrain, and I'm sure that many of you have been enjoying the presentations made by our colleagues from all over the world. I remember that the first part of the warning week was more about the cases and events that have occurred and how do the people forecast these things. And then at the moment, what is going on at this warning week is the communication part of the high impact weather events. How do we communicate? How do we inform people about what's happening? One way and one good development already for many, many years has been the Meteor Alarm page. That is a collection of warnings in one page. And I'm just showing you the recent Meteor Alarm page with the current warnings over Europe. And generally, the green means all fine, no major warnings. Yellow means a first level alarm level of something going on. And for today, most of the warnings are quite much related to wind in the central parts of Europe, especially in Germany. Also in southern parts of Poland and western parts of Austria, and also to the snow and sleet over the western parts of Europe, especially in the UK. And some warnings also in the north, but not that many. I'm just walking through 3 regions where we have some warnings just to give you an overview of where the warnings come from. So this one is the westernmost part of the Europe map, and I'm just showing these are the this afternoon 12 UTC observations. So you see the temperatures are around 4 to 6 degrees in the southern part of the UK. In Scotland, as David said, it's only miserable 2 degrees, and the weather is not so fine. We see that there's a nice trough here going across the island towards Scotland with lots of gusty winds perhaps at the rear, and all these lumpy clouds, meaning lots of unstable clouds, and that combined with the low temperatures and low thickness of the lower troposphere, it means that at least some elevated areas would experience pure snow, and also the low-lying areas may experience some sleet. This is the overlay with the Opera network radars, and you see that at the moment the heaviest precipitation is taking place in the Northern Ireland, and it's like this trough is very nicely, all the clouds and all the rain is nicely collocated with this trough moving from northwest towards the southeast. So the UK Met Office colleagues, they expect very much of warnings and problems in the westernmost parts of the UK at the moment. You see also lots of other showery areas all around the mainland of Europe. Rob was mentioning the Holland and Netherlands at the moment having also sleet. So all these showers that you see here, they have some mixture of rain and snow. And the temperatures are fairly low. The other area that is also having a little bit of frontal activity, at least today, is the area in the southern Scandinavia. So you see the low pressure partial center of low center. Low center is at the moment in the southern parts of Sweden, extending with the kind of a occlusion front and the cold front here. You see this blue line here represents the thermal frontal parameter, and it's only one isoline, so the frontal itself is fairly much now drying out. There's not much more development, but there's still some precipitation taking place, as you see that at least the westernmost of parts of Sweden as well as the northernmost parts of Denmark are experiencing some sleet and wet snow still today. And then the other region, which is then the last remaining region that I'm just taking a little bit of detailed view, is in the central parts of Europe, where you see that it's all in fairly strong southwesterly flow, with currently the precipitation along the cold front nicely collocated with the cold front, and the gusty winds associated perhaps just at the rear of the cold front, but as well in before the cold front. The model winds, low-level winds, are also showing this feature that you have the strongest winds with the longest green arrows are just at the rear of the cold front, and it's fairly gusty wind as well. It's the values that I was watching from the web, these are the current maximum gusts over the region. They have been generally on the low-lying areas 60 kilometers, 72 kilometers per hour. That would be 20 meters per second. But at some higher mountain tops, we have exceeded or even 30, 40 meters per second. I think the region on this value 148 is perhaps from the Harz Mountains in the central parts of Germany, quite high measuring point. But you see also very high values here in the northwestern parts of Austria and southern parts of Germany. In Bavaria, lots of gusty winds at the moment. So these were the current warnings very quickly. Because the time is only 30 minutes, we won't be able to go into more details. And of course, I've been trying to use my other eye just to read your comments on the text chat box, but I will have more time to look at them after this briefing. But probably many of us are already preparing for the Christmas, and many of you probably even have made some forecasts already for your audience and for your people about how the Christmas weather will be. For I don't have really magic things here. I would only maybe just like to share with you what the ECMWF is forecasting in the long term, and maybe that also will help us to see what's happening in the larger scale, so we get a little bit of a bigger picture. So I'm stopping sharing this PowerPoint now, and I'm trying to get back to share you the Firefox window. Actually, try it again. So Firefox window should be now opening on your end, and what you see, hopefully, is a rather long animation of 500 hectopascal flow over the next 10 days. Marco, you can of course give me a shout if you don't see it or if there's some problems. But I'll just let the animation run first once, and then I'll just give a brief explanation of of things what we can see here. So at the moment, when we are in this cold air mass, it's still over us until the weekend, but what you see happening here towards the beginning of next week is this ridge coming from the west finally. So that will warm up the weather in the western and central parts of Europe quite a bit. And even also in the Scandinavia, there will be a warm, some portion of warmer air coming up. But the main thing that I see, at least in this map, is when I'm looking at the whole animation, is that during the next 10 days, the activity at 500 hectopascal is high. So we have quite a changeable conditions, and what comes to the northern parts of Europe, I would probably expect with this active Atlantic airstream that we might have rather mild conditions next week, lots of wind, lots of precipitation, but perhaps also in the form of rain rather than snow. What happens then after, it's just when the Christmas comes, I see some signs of the cold coming back, but that's a bit too far. What comes to the southern parts of Europe instead is that you see that there is this elongated trough that seems to be alive for many days. And next week, early next week, you see this trough feeding itself, and it's still alive. There are some little drops of more cold air coming towards Italy, Greece. So these regions might be quite unstable next week and cooler than usual. But the westernmost part of Europe, including Spain and Portugal, they would remain fairly fine. This is just my quick interpretation of what's happening in the ECMWF maps. And the one thing I wanted to share with you also was the same message you actually get from the extended range forecast from the ECMWF, which should be actually updated today. So what I'm here at the moment watching is still the forecast from the Monday, but what we saw in temperature is the warmer than usual, the whole this week warmer than usual in the easternmost parts of Europe, and the west parts of Europe will be colder than usual. But the next week there will be a slight change, so that you can see that also the northern Scandinavia, eastern parts of Europe will still have a quite warm signal, and some warming up also in the western Europe, whereas in the southeast and southern parts of Europe, including Italy and Greece, the temperatures might be a bit lower than normal. So this is all we can say. I will be interested to see how the Christmas weather will develop in different parts of Europe, but at least at this point my time is out, and I'm just wishing everybody a nice Christmas, and I'm happy to read your chat and hear your questions now. I'm here for the next 15 minutes, so feel free to send your comments now. Thank you.